Greetings, my name is Aisha Marable and I am the Director of Community Engagement at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. Welcome. Thank you to the 105 Voices of History National HBCU Concert Choir, the Arts Education Department, and all the performers today for setting the tone for this wonderful occasion. To our distinguished guests, to our honorees and friends of the Performing Arts Center, we welcome you to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Annual Award Celebration. This event is one that NJPAC holds dear to our hearts. We've been hosting it for 24 years now in honor of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. With the passing of each generation, our firsthand memories of Dr. King Jr. are vulnerable and fading from the collective consciousness. We must never forget. We remember him and honor him by making sure our children and our children's children know his story. How he fought for our justice for all people, how his words inspired and healed a nation. By racial inequity, he conquered all. His sermon spoke to all Americans from all walks of life, from street sweepers to senators. I can't tell you how excited we are to honor two amazing individuals. Adorian Murray Thomas will receive the Visionary of the Future Award. Senator Ronald Weiss will receive the Steward of the Dream Award. Both honorees, in their own unique way, have their way of embracing and embodying the highest level of civic engagement and a passion for humanity that exemplifies the spirit of Dr. King Jr. Now, let me introduce to you John Schreiber, our President and CEO of NJPAC. And let's thank him in advance for his stellar leadership, particularly during this unprecedented time of this global pandemic. Enjoy the program.
Thank you, Aisha, and thanks to you all for joining us today for this virtual celebration of Dr. King and his legacy. This is the 24th year that the Arts Center has marked the occasion of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day by acknowledging and applauding the remarkable work being done by leaders and activists in our community. The urgent need for the spiritual heirs of Dr. King to step forward and continue his work has been apparent for a long time. Nevertheless, I think that this need has perhaps never been so clear to so many people as it has been this past year. So we knew that we must continue to hold this gathering despite all the hindrances to collective celebrations we face right now, and we must do so safely. I'm so glad that you're here with us today through Facebook, through YouTube, watching by yourself or with family, and that you're a part of this vital reinvention of this long Arts Center tradition, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Awards. I also want to thank our partners in today's event, ADP, the longtime sponsor of the Arts Center's community engagement events, as well as PSEG, who has partnered with us throughout this extraordinary year to make NJPAC's robust slate of social justice events possible. And of course, we thank the Newark Branch of the NAACP for continuing to work with us to recognize those in our community who have steadfastly worked for the betterment of us all. Chartered in 1914, the Newark Branch is one of the largest and oldest branches of the organization in the country. I'm especially grateful for the work and partnership of the Newark Branch's president, Deborah Smith Gregory. I'd also like to digitally welcome the members of NJPAC's advisory councils, which are composed of more than 150 volunteers who serve as the Arts Center's ambassadors. They spread the word about our programming and advise us on the cultural tastes of their communities. Created in 1997, the year NJPAC first opened, the councils have 6 advisory committees: the Celebrate Dance Committee, the Faith-Based Committee, the Jazz Committee, the Latino Committee, and the LGBTQ or Pride Committee, as well as the Council of Elders. Thank you all for your advice and your insight. Most of all, I want to give my congratulations to tonight's honorees. Senator Ronald L. Weiss will receive the Steward of the Dream Award in recognition of his decades of service as a member of the New Jersey State Senate. Senator Weiss, who is also a veteran, a Marine, and a former Newark police officer, is one of New Jersey's longest-serving state senators, elected to his post 9 times, who has worked on countless issues central to Newark's well-being during his years in office. He was an early supporter of the Arts Center, and his passion for the arts and his advocacy for NJPAC is something we will never forget. The Visionary of the Future Award is presented to Adorian Murray Thomas for her service on the Newark Public School Board. When Adorian was elected to the board in 2019, she was only 23 years old and became its youngest ever member. She is also the founder of She Wins, Inc., a leadership and social action organization for middle and high school girls in Newark. And Adorian is still a young woman. I can only imagine what she will accomplish in the decades to come. You'll hear more about tonight's honorees shortly. I'm very happy that you'll also be treated to performances by some of NJPAC's arts education students who have, you should know, been working on their performance skills throughout the pandemic, creating new work with the Art Center's teaching artists and in collaboration with their peers. And I am also very happy to welcome back to the Arts Center Khalil Gibran Muhammad, Professor of History, Race, and Public Policy at Harvard Kennedy School, and the Suzanne Young Murray Professor at the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Studies. Professor Muhammad directs the Institutional Anti-Racism and Accountability Project and is the former director of the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, a division of the New York Public Library and the world's leading library and archive of global Black history. Professor Muhammad was last with us to lead a discussion following a screening of the documentary Good Trouble about the life and work of another great civil rights leader, John Lewis. That was one of the many events NJPAC has hosted that examined the ongoing struggle for social justice, and one which we shared with audiences of more than 60 arts and cultural institutions around the country. We started doing that work this summer, shortly after the murder of George Floyd, and we continue to do that work today and will continue it going forward. If you missed any of our social justice events, you can find recordings of them all at Standing in Solidarity, the page on our website devoted to social justice events and the sharing of a wealth of social justice resources. And I hope you will join us Monday at 7 for the latest such event, another chapter in our PSEG True Diversity film series, when we'll watch a documentary called Boss, The Black Experience in Business, and then offer a panel discussion with executives of color from our community who will discuss how Black business leaders have used their work to advance social justice as well as their companies' fortunes. And now, please welcome a longtime friend of the Arts Center, Rick Thigpen. He's the Senior Vice President of Corporate Citizenship at PSEG and the Chair of the PSEG Foundation. Rick?
Thank you, John, and good evening, everyone. My name is Rick Thigpen, Senior Vice President for Corporate Citizenship for Public Service Enterprise Group, as well as Chairman of the PSEG Foundation, which is a proud supporter of tonight's event. PSEG is pleased to present this evening's special tribute to the enduring legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Every year, this event provides a fitting and joyful celebration of Dr. King's life and work, and it has grown into an exceptional tradition, not only for New Jersey Performing Arts Center in the city of Newark, but also for our great state of New Jersey. PSEG has been honored to be a sponsor of this event since the very beginning. NJPAC's annual MLK Dinner and Reception are a highlight of this season. It is truly my personal honor, as it has been for several years now, to welcome all of you to tonight's first ever virtual event. And I look forward to a time, hopefully in the not too distant future, when we're able to take part in this occasion together in celebration and in fellowship and in person. Public Service Enterprise Group is excited to partner with NJPAC and the Newark Branch of the NAACP to make this evening's event possible. They are both outstanding partners, and it is my pleasure to thank them both. Tonight's honorees, A. Dorian Murray Thomas, a fierce young advocate for education and for Newark's girls and young women, and New Jersey State Senator Ron Weiss, who is now in his 35th year of working relentlessly on behalf of his constituents, are both outstanding examples of what can be achieved. I am especially proud of a very old friend, Senator Ron Rice, who I first met 40 years ago as the newly elected West Ward councilman in the city of Newark. His commitment to Newark, his commitment to his constituents, his commitments to the cause of social justice make him someone especially fitted for this award. It is with a special privilege that I also say a special thank you to Ron Rice for all you've done and for all you have done in the cause of public service. I am proud to stand alongside both of these individuals as part of tonight's salute to Reverend Dr. King. Each of them has taken on a passionate, personal, and purposeful responsibility for the future of our communities. Through education and through representative government, both of tonight's honorees are helping to build New Jersey communities that are powerful, that are prosperous, and that are above all sustainable long into the future. At Public Service, we too are deeply concerned with the concept of sustainability. First and foremost, as an energy company that drives the New Jersey economy and supports economic development and thousands of good, reliable jobs, and we're doing that with a bias toward equity and social justice with job training and supplier diversity programs that are designed specifically for the state's urban and underserved communities. Today's sustainability also means providing energy in a way that does not harm the environment, the climate, or public health. It means supporting our communities by providing customers with energy to power and heat their homes at a cost that is affordable, and by providing financial support to the institutions such as NJPAC that help our communities thrive. To all of us, your joining us tonight allows me to say thank you for taking part in this annual celebration. On behalf of everyone at PSEG, I hope that you will enjoy this evening's program, including tonight's keynote speaker, Rutgers' own Dr. Khalil Muhammad, the historian. There's a quote from Dr. King that inspires me. It is one of the most frequently quoted passages and one of my personal favorites. Those who are not looking for happiness are the most likely to find it, because those who are searching forget that the surest way to be happy is to seek happiness for others. Dr. King's words should serve as inspiration for all of us, particularly because he lived and died for the cause of seeking happiness and justice for others. Caring for our communities and for our children and providing for their future and happiness and success was the foundation of Dr. King's vision, and it most certainly has been the life's work of tonight's honorees. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of tonight's outstanding event.
Many people wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. When I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenally. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, it's the fire in my eyes, the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist, the joy in my feet. I'm a woman, phenomenally. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say, it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breasts, the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenally. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palms of my hands, the need for my care. Because I'm a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman. That's my mother and all your mothers, and my grandmothers and your grandmothers, and my great-grandmothers and your greats and my great-greats and all you women and me.
Greetings. On behalf of the NAACP Newark, New Jersey branch, I congratulate the honorees of this year's celebration for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The steward of the dream, Senator Ronald Rice Sr., is an anchor, a leader, an outspoken legislator who has positively served the community for over 30 years. And the visionary of the future, Adorian Murray Thomas, is a young woman leading in the educational arena through her work as an elected school board member with the Newark Board of Education and founder of a Girls Empowerment Mentoring Program. Also, thank you to the NJPAC staff for continuing this legacy event that brings together the community to remember, reflect, and to rededicate our work through the words and practices of Dr. King, and to highlight community honorees that exemplify his teachings. Dr. King once noted, "Our world is a neighborhood. We are tied together in a single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, and whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." The coronavirus pandemic, also known as COVID-19, has shown us that indeed our world is a neighborhood and has heightened the awareness of our common humanity. Caring for others and looking out for each other has become the thread used to ensure survival and life. The pandemic has also starkly revealed the inequities in healthcare, economics, housing, labor, and education that consistently plague this country. NAACP Newark, New Jersey, established in 1914, remains committed to relentless and unapologetic advocacy. We have the courage to stand as a testament of hope, striding toward a better, more just society for all. Regarding civic engagement, Dr. King also noted, "One of the most basic weapons in the fight for social justice will be the cumulative political power of the Negro. I can foresee the Negro vote becoming consistently the decisive vote in national elections." While he said that over 30 years ago, his words live today. If we look on the general election of 2020, the foundation of the United States and its democracy was saved by Black voters. That statement is not to suggest that other voting groups have no power. However, despite desperate attempts to disenfranchise, marginalize, and discredit Black voters, we came out in record numbers around the country to cast our votes during a pandemic. And to punctuate our significance and power, Black voters turned the color of the state of Georgia with the first Black man voted to the United States Senate since the Reconstruction era. We showed that civic participation activates our power. Let's remember the recurring theme of Dr. King's words and work: love. The road to regeneration is love. Love will always trump hate. Love will unite. Love and light will prevail over hatred and darkness. Let's exercise our love for freedom by being responsible to each other and holding each other accountable for our communal actions. Let's be the love that bears a sweet fruit of equity and justice for our families and community. Congratulations to Senator Rice and Adorian Murray Thomas for bearing nourishing fruit for our community.
Hi, my name is Ianna Gordonell. I'm 15 and I attend Bard High School in early college. I was 10 years old when I became a member of She Wins. Ironically, it was Miss Adorian this past summer who contacted my mom and I to ask me to participate in the NJPAC Rise and Shine program, where I participated in musical theater as well as visual arts. As someone who loves Hamilton and anything of the arts, this was an amazing experience. And I want to thank NJPAC and the teachers for the opportunity. This afternoon, I was given the honor to introduce one of NJPAC's awardees who just happens to be my mentor. It is truly an honor to speak on her behalf. Dorian has played a big role in my life over the years in molding and polishing me into the girl you see today. Dorian has been more than a mentor to me and the other girls in She Wins. She's also been seen as family. To me, I see her as a big sister. Dorian took me from the shy person I used to be to a proud and bold girl who speaks her mind without hesitation. She's nourished me and taught me what it means to be a Black girl in today's society and how to navigate and get through when the times are tough. If there's anyone that I know deserves this award, it's Dorian. She has taken me with her to the White House during the Obama administration and to the parks in Newark to serve food to homeless children and families. I've had so many beautiful first experiences as part of She Wins. Not only is Dorian paving the way for young Black men and women, but she is setting down a foundation that future generations can build up from. As the youngest woman ever elected to the school board, I know she is working in the best interest of students in Newark. Dorian, like me, is truly a young leader on the rise and the Black woman who rocks. I'm so proud of you, Dorian. Congratulations.
On the eve of a woman who once picked cotton with her bare hands, being able to use those same hands to cast a vote for her son to become the first Black senator in the state of Georgia, I am honored and humbled to stand before you today as a recipient of the Visionary of the Future Award at the annual MLK celebration. I'm so thankful to John for his vision and leadership and the amazing team he has here at NJPAC, like Aisha, Najia, and everyone a part of the NJPAC family for helping make this opportunity possible. You know, it's not lost on me that I stand here on the shoulders of giants. Giants like Fannie Lou Hamer, Shirley Chisholm, Stacey Abrams, LaTosha Brown, women and Black women in particular who have stood up unapologetically and risked everything to protect their rights and the rights of others, like women and men in my own family. Those who, on my mom's side in South Carolina, went from being sharecroppers to landowners and business owners in one generation, to those on my father's side, like my grandmother, who risked everything to leave her home country of Guyana to come here to America for a better life for her and her children. This work that I inherited, being able to create She Wins, to become the youngest woman ever elected to the largest school board in the state of New Jersey, was made possible by the work and sacrifices of so many people who come before me. In the midst of everything, from losing my father at a young age, an immigrant and small business owner, to gun violence here in Newark, to seeing my mother work tirelessly for me and her students that she served as a social worker and public school teacher. I've had the privilege of being able to be raised by a community, by a city, a people here in Newark who, no matter what the world tried to call us, chose to call me and my peers by our names: beautiful, talented, capable, powerful beyond measure. And by the grace of God, I've had the privilege to do the same for hundreds of girls that I've been able to reach through our programs in She Wins, from our summer programs, after school programs, conferences, and community workshops here in Newark, to the 55,000 plus kids I have the privilege of serving as a school board member. Just like my village did for me, every day I wake up with a new opportunity to help our kids to see and know exactly who they are: beautiful, talented, capable, powerful beyond measure. And so to my NJPAC family, I thank you for creating space to honor the legacy of a giant like Martin Luther King by not only recognizing leaders and change makers in the community, but by always investing in those who we need now more than ever to carry out his legacy, our children. Because we know that by investing in our kids, be it through art, dance, music, theater, and so many other ways that NJPAC constantly gives back to incredible young people like Ianna, through their arts education programs and work throughout the city and the state, we are doing nothing short of the revolutionary. History and the now has shown us that giving our kids space to live out truths like the Kwanzaa principle of Kujichagulia, defining ourselves for ourselves, is indeed a revolutionary act. And so I thank you. Thank you for helping live out the legacy of Martin Luther King and encouraging our young people, our greatest gift, to do the same. May we continue to honor his legacy by constantly working in pursuit of justice and walking in that path, even when we have to walk alone, and by always protecting the joy and light in our children. Thank you again, NJPAC, for this incredible award, and congratulations to all of the phenomenal awardees. May your work continue. Ashe.
New Jersey State Senator Ronald L. Rice Sr. is one of the senior statesmen for the New Jersey Senate. Senator Rice started his career following an honorable discharge as a Vietnam veteran from the Marine Corps. After being discharged, he took the Newark Police Department test, passed, and became a police officer, rising to the ranks of detective. Always someone who is searching for another way to serve. He started at Essex County College while he was in the police service and went on to get his master's in criminal justice at John Jay. Shortly after resigning from the Newark Police Department, he decided that he wanted to serve his people in his community by running for an office. So while he didn't have a whole lot of money and he didn't have political backing, he did what he does best. He was fiercely determined that he was going to make a difference. So he put his money up, he made signs, he went door to door throughout the West Ward and put signs up so that people would know who he was and what he stood for. And ultimately, he became the West Ward councilman. While at City Hall, he was also deputy mayor. When the opportunity arose to continue to serve on a state level, again, he threw his fierce determination in it, campaigned, and was victorious as the New Jersey State Senator. At the time, in 1986, there were only 2 black state senators, and he was one of them, along with the late Senator Winona Lippman. He has been serving as our New Jersey State Senator since 1986. And during that time, he has enacted legislation that champions the rights of seniors, of children, the displaced, the homeless. If you want someone on your side for an issue, you want Senator Rice. He also has a way of bringing different groups and organizations and forming alliances to work together on common issues. He's one of the few people who can call all of these organizations together in the city of Newark and beyond and say, let's get to work, and work gets done. Senator Rice is certainly a gem in our community. He is fierce, outspoken, but yet tender in his love for his people. I have the honor of introducing to you New Jersey State Senator Ronald Rice Sr.
Hello, my name is Ronald L. Rice. I'm a New Jersey State Senator, and I'm very happy and very proud and honored to receive this recognition from New Jersey PAC. I have a long history with this institution. It's this wonderful place, but I also have a long history with the civil rights movement. And so every time I receive an award in the name and recognition of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, I'm just so thrilled. Let me just say, first of all, I'm not a young chippy. I come from the civil rights movement. And I remember the days back in the 60s and the marches and the Freedom Riders and the stands. I was born in Richmond, Virginia. I lived there during the segregation of the South. I came to Newark, New Jersey in 1955. And I always remind my colleagues in the Senate that they don't understand my roots. I remind them that I came to Newark, New Jersey at the age of 9 years old. And that was in 1955. And if you go back, and that was January 1955. If you go back a few months to 1954, it was Brown versus Board of Education. And so I could read and write at the age of 9, so you understand that I know what segregation was all about. And so I use that often time on the floor of the Senate to express my disenchantment and my concerns about social justice, economic justice, environmental justice, and civil rights and equal opportunities. Because I understand what it took for us to get to where we are today and the sacrifices that Dr. Martin Luther King and so many others made over the years. I used to interact with people like Andy Young and Maynard Jackson, Carolyn Longbank from Georgia, Atlanta, people like the Honorable Donald Tucker, who was a very serious activist in the civil rights movement right here from the city of Newark. And so this is a great honor for me, but New Jersey PAC is also something I'm very proud of because many people don't understand the history of this facility and how it came about. The Honorable Tom King, who's a very good friend, was governor, who had a vision that if we put New Jersey PAC in the city of Newark, it'll become the anchor for a city that really came out of the 1967 rise with many, many issues facing it under the first black mayor, Ken Gibson. And as a result, when Mayor Sharp James came into office, there was this push to have this art center, performance center right here in the city of Newark. When I first went to Trenton in 1986 as a state senator, there was only one black senator sitting in the Senate of 40 members, and that was Senator Winona Lippman, who also lived here in the city of Newark. It was fortunate for us that we both were assigned to the Budget and Appropriations Committee where the money come through. And there's a gentleman that no one speaks of named Lawrence Weiss. Lawrence Weiss was the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. And so to make this vision of NJPAC become a reality, there was pushback on Governor Tom King, but he stayed the course. People from Bergen County who loved the arts, but did not care much for cities like Newark, the urban cities, where majority, minority, poor, struggling, working family populations live, fought the governor on having this facility built here. They fought us in talking about putting $40 million up for this facility. They even said they were building the Bergen County for nothing, but Governor Tom King stayed the course. But the chairman of the committee, Lawrence Weiss, who had an affection for Newark because in his younger years he had businesses here, he fought back and he allowed Senator Winona Lippman, the only black woman and the only black at one time before I came to Trenton, and myself, the only two sitting blacks, to argue the case why Newark and to push back on the racism. And it was easy for me to push back on the racism because I understood our struggle coming from the segregated South, coming from a history of civil rights and the civil rights movement. And it was much easier for Senator Winona Lippman to push back because she was a tutor for Dr. Martin Luther King. Yes, she was one of his teachers. And this is history a lot of people don't know. When we did this facility, I even had to argue with the mayor who was the biggest drum major for it, Mayor Sharp James, and he needs credit for that. We said we're going to do with legislation what was not done before. We're going to make sure that Governor King and Lawrence Weiss and everybody's dream was fulfilled, that this was not just an institution or facility or performing arts center that failed. They had to come to the state every year asking for $20, $30 million to sustain itself or become a white elephant like the Garden State Art Performance Center was during that time and still is to some degree. We said we're going to make it a nonprofit, but use it as an anchor to build taxable districts. And that's what this really became. We even did some work with Prudential and others with land deals to make sure that once this facility was up and running, in the future, you could actually expand and continue to build. And that's what's taking place today. So to receive this recognition is really important to me, but I accept it on behalf of Lawrence Weiss, who demised in Florida several years ago, and Senator Winona Lippman, who stayed the course and was there at my side to make it happen. and the Honorable Mayor Sharp James, who was the biggest drum major for it, and particularly Tom King, the former governor who's still alive today and still comes to participate here. So I may be receiving the recognition, but it's for all of us who put our shoulders together and stayed the course collectively to make it happen. And I have to give credit to the Larry Goldmans and others, and the Congressman Donald Paynes, who was a part of this as well. And even his sister Gail, who was the black architect to pull this together. Gus Hindenburg, who fought so hard to make sure there was minority business and minority participation with this facility. And so today we have New Jersey PAC, and today I'm receiving an award that I'm very proud of from New Jersey PAC, and that is the Dr. Martin Luther King Award. So I want to thank New Jersey PAC and all those who made this happen for this recognition, and I hope I can continue to make you proud in my days in the state Senate and as we rebuild the city of Newark. Thank you very much.
My city is shaking. We're built on too many damn dreams to count. Too many damn dreams to count. To be heard, we gotta scream and shout. My city is a family. I got my grandfather's name, Remnant. Great-great-grandmother's dream, I bend it. I know from where we came, city on a hill. Every day I go to school, pity on a hill. My city is a kite, fly away. My city is a backdrop, right away. My city thinks it's a beacon, brighter day. All I want for my city is a brighter day. My city is where black boys get robbed of honor. Those on the hill rob me of honors classes. Those on the hill rob me of a peaceful walk. Those on the hill rob me of a place to talk. But what happens when black boys conquer those hills and rain down unshakable joy on the valleys, and all the poets reclaim their title as griot? I got my grandfather's name, Remnant. Great-great-grandmother's dream, I bend it. My city on my heart like a pendant. My city on my heart like a pendant.
It's such an honor tonight to be here at NJPAC to give the keynote address. I want to thank John Schreiber and Aisha Maribel for hosting me and the honorees this evening. I also want to give a big congratulations to Adorian Murray Thomas, as well as Senator Ron Weiss for their leadership. The title of my address this evening is Time to Get Our Check. In 1967, before a small audience at a church, Dr. Martin Luther King reflected on the meaning of freedom after slavery. Black people had worked for 243 years for nothing. When emancipation came, black people got freedom to hunger, freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom and famine at the same time, he said. Government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only that, King went on, did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm. And they are the very people telling the black man he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. This is what we are faced with, and this is a reality now when we come to Washington with this campaign, and we are coming to get our check, Dr. King noted. It has taken 50 years of research and writing to regain the clarity with which Dr. King understood and described the scale and scope of systemic racism in America near the end of his life. For many of you joining us today here at NJPAC, you've read Ta-Nehisi Coates' article, The Case for Reparations, watched him testify 2 summers ago on Juneteenth, along with several others, on the need to pass H.R. 40, the late John Conyers' stillborn bill, first introduced in 1989 on reparations. The legislation followed shortly after the Michigan congressman had led a 15-year fight to establish the King holiday against a presidential veto and an annual distribution of 17,000 FBI files on Dr. King. Conyers clearly understood what King's legacy was all about, and also understood as a Detroiter how white lives really did matter to federal officials. Because as we stand at the precipice of the possibility of a new America, and politicians debate how to move forward in the midst of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and its devastating toll on Black, Indigenous, and Brown lives, the question of redistribution of wealth and resources are front and center in American politics. The question of whether there will be a Green New Deal and Medicare for all is being defined less as a choice between the many people who will live and the many people who will die, as it should be, but falsely as a choice between capitalism and socialism. When King talked about coming to Washington to get a check, he wasn't just sloganeering. He was deadly serious. To him, it was a matter of life or death. He clearly understood that Black lives had subsidized white lives, from slavery to freedom. The labor of Black people had underwritten the wealth of white America. In his own words, depressed living standards for Negroes are a structural part of the economic system in the United States. A week before he died, Dr. King told a New York Times reporter, "In a sense, you could say we are engaged in the class struggle, for our program calls for a redistribution of economic power." King understood that because of the New Deal with its redlining housing policies and last hired, first fired jobs program for Black folks, that most white Americans didn't get to buy a home or finance a college education because of the free market capitalist system. They did it because of socialistic mortgage subsidies and guarantees to both white borrowers and white builders. To this day, white Americans on average have 10 times the net worth of Black Americans, but the primary instrument of wealth creation for the typical white American wasn't capitalism, but socialism. 1/4 of white Americans own land today because of the Federal Homestead Act, which gave them land directly at very cheap prices, not based on a market economy managed by private actors, but based on a massive social program managed by the government. The same land, which, by the way, was stolen by violence and conquest from indigenous communities. This was the kind of redistribution that built the middle-class homes that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates grew up in. Resources that came from the whites-only federally subsidized loans that gave them the first venture capital they needed to harness their creative visions. Most elderly white Americans today depend on Medicare, exactly the kind of race-based socialism that's good for some, but not for all. The reason the right has been fighting so hard for 40 years, leading to the lunacy of the last 4 years to dismantle and then destroy government, is not because government failed at creating wealth and opportunity for many white Americans, but because it did it too well. The half-century before Reagan, the government used high progressive taxes on wealthy whites to redistribute to low-income and middle-income whites. What an irony that many people evoke King's legacy today as a reason for believing more capitalism will save Black people. A thing-oriented society, King described, where you are the thing, cannot fix itself. If anything, Black people have been the most subjected to the vagaries of free market capitalism without any of the protections that American socialism gave to white Americans. Remember the Great Recession, big banks too big to fail, and more recently with meth, heroin, and opioid epidemics, white drug addicts and criminals too many to jail. Black people went from being private property to being exploited by private interests in the convict leasing system, to being liberated by civil rights legislation to compete in a capitalist race rigged from the start. But King repeatedly called for a restructuring of the whole of American society. And contrary to popular myth, King didn't expand his vision of justice by figuring out that racism was baked into capitalism at the end of his life. Before he even moved to Montgomery, Alabama, in a love letter to Coretta Scott, his future wife, in 1952, he wrote this: "I'm not a conventional Baptist minister. I believe in the social gospel. It's not enough to save souls. We need to change society so the soul will have a chance. My father," he noted, "was a thoroughgoing capitalist, but I don't want to own a lot, and ignoring people's need is wrong. I'm much more socialistic in my economic theory than capitalistic. Capitalism has outlived its usefulness. It takes the necessities from the masses to give luxuries to the classes. I believe in the naturalization of industry, a warless world, and better distribution of wealth, a brotherhood that transcends race or color. I believe that is the gospel we need for the world," King wrote in 1952. It also reminds me of something King said later, and that is that philanthropy is commendable, but it must not cause the philanthropist to overlook the circumstances of economic injustice which make philanthropy necessary. What lessons should we consider now that we're in 2021 in light of Dr. King's words and legacy? We've seen the recent storming of the U.S. Capitol by extremists and terrorists hell-bent on destroying democracy in this country. King described what happened after 1965. He noted that white America was ready to demand that the Negro should be spared the lash of brutality and coarse degradation, but it had never been truly committed to helping him out of poverty, exploitation, or all forms of discrimination. The outraged white citizen had been sincere when he snatched the whips from the Southern sheriffs and forbade them from more cruelties. But when this was to a degree accomplished, the ambitions that had momentarily inflamed white people melted away. White Americans left the Negro on the ground and in devastating numbers walked off with the aggressor. It appeared that the white segregationists and the ordinary white citizen had more in common with each other than either had with the Negro. Trump and his, or I should say most of his 74 million voters, 12 million more in 2020 than in 2016, are the white segregationists in this 1965 story. And Biden's 81 million supporters are many of the ordinary white citizens, a subset of whom in the millions took to the streets this past summer to protest the George Floyd killing, or what King called the lash of brutality and coarse degradation. But make no mistake, the common bonds of whiteness have proved stronger and durable and a force of unity for 401 years than an enduring commitment to justice. When Negroes looked for the second phase, the realization of equality, Dr. King noted, they found that many of their white allies had quietly disappeared. The Negroes of America had taken the president, the press, and the pulpit at their word when they spoke in broad terms of freedom and justice. But the absence of brutality and unregenerate evil is not the presence of justice. To say murder is not the same thing as to obtain brotherhood. Laws are passed in a crisis mode after a Birmingham or a Selma, or, as we might note this summer, after a Louisville or a Minneapolis, or on the Garden State Parkway for that matter, as King continued. But no substantial fervor survives the formal signing of legislation. The recording of the law itself is treated as the reality of the reform, and this should no longer be true. King could never have imagined the crisis of police brutality or mass incarceration as the harvest of the civil rights movement. After King's death, the historian Liz Hinton has found that there were Black uprisings in 125 cities, and between 1968 and 1972, at least 960 segregated Black communities witnessed 2,310 separate incidents of civil unrest or uprisings. Unlike this summer, however, these were young black people on their own without the cover of a sea of white bodies. Unlike this summer, when these young black people first challenged Democratic mayors and governors and a president in Lyndon Baines Johnson, they were met by every tool of repression from local cops to National Guardsmen, as well as their elected representatives from state legislators to congressmen passing the first laws by the federal government to criminalize black protest and resistance, to define black poverty as pathological, and to divert resources from schools to cages. 2 months after King was assassinated, a Democratic-led Congress passed Lyndon Baines Johnson's Safe Streets Act of 1968, which put an unprecedented $330 million of federal investment in militarizing local police forces, arming law enforcement with surplus weapons and counterinsurgency methods from the jungles of Vietnam. For 50 years, both parties responded to the murder of Dr. King and the outrage of young black people across the nation who were protesting the precarities and insecurities of a society built to extract and exploit them by building more jails and prisons than any place in the world. By a long shot, the United States is the world's leading jailer, and no aspect of national life, from the economy to education to electoral politics, has been untouched by the scale and scope of racialized policing and punishment. It is an $80 billion system that drains resources from the public goods that build healthy and secure lives, from education to healthcare. It is deeply rooted in the white supremacist and capitalist logics of containment and extraction. It is also a massive jobs program for mostly white police and prison guards across the nation. The Kerner Commission found this when it studied it up close in 1967 and noted that what white Americans have never fully understood, what the Negro can never forget, is that white society is deeply implicated in the ghetto. White institutions created it, white institutions maintain it, and white society condones it. But LBJ turned his back on the Kerner Commission and buried their report. Nixon was soon elected and initiated a Southern strategy to criminalize black people on a scale heretofore never seen before. New Jerseyans have some reason to celebrate this year, having turned the page on some of this history. The legalization of marijuana and now new de-escalation and transparency policies on use of force. The most significant in my mind being the use of force portal. What failed after the civil rights movement and what brings us to today is that it was much easier to do integration than to transform our society. It was much easier to integrate a park than to get rid of slums. According to King, there was never any intention to go any further. People were reacting to Bull Connor and Jim Clark, or in this case, Derek Chauvin and Donald Trump, rather than acting in good faith for the realization of genuine equality. With our politics today, after all, we are here honoring New Jersey Senator Ronald Weiss. We must look at the possibilities of the new Georgia Senator Ralph Warnock. But politics demands of politicians the ability to win elections and to reflect the will of the voters. But our politics, or what I think of as a political marketplace, rewards racism and sexism and exploitation and ignorance and misinformation and disinformation. Our political marketplace needs to change. It put a president in the White House in the first place who never should have been there. And no matter how much individuals might imagine themselves as being on the right side of history today, I hope no one goes into this new political moment with any delusions that there aren't tens and tens of millions of people who don't believe what you believe. There is a red America and a blue America and slices of purple America. The states are not united, but deeply divided. And as much as we like to emphasize unity and to lift up the positive, The two Senate races were won by less than 1 percentage point in Georgia. The Senate is evenly split, and the only reason Democrats will control it is because the vice president breaks ties. I don't know about you, but I know I don't teach my children false information or a sense of false pride or false hope. We need to be real about the country we live in order to change it. I teach them that racism is the problem, not race, that implicit bias is the accumulation of explicit bias. Children are taught by words, by deeds, by silence, and of course by what they see and hear. One of my local friends, a man named Topher Sanders, is a journalist from Maplewood, New Jersey, and told a story about how his young son happened to be on a playground and a group of young children were playing on one of those spinning things, having the time of their lives. And as his son approached to join the fun, a little girl said, "Only white people." My friend wasn't sure he heard correctly until she repeated, "Not you, you're black, you're not white, only white people can play." And my friend admits that as a father, he had no idea what to say or do in this moment. Most of us don't. But what we know is that in our school curricula, in the history textbooks, in the museums and monuments honoring Confederates and segregationists, are the lies that teach our children racism. I believe, like King, that children must be actively taught to be anti-racist, just as they are taught not to sexually abuse or bully others. Like sex ed in schools, we need bias education, and it should be taught in every school. We must teach our children to be vigilant realists and cautious optimists. We should teach them to value the truth. When you go to the doctor, for example, I'm sure you don't want the oncologist to lie about your cancer, to lean into optimism that the shadow that is sitting outside of your liver on a CAT scan is probably just a bad scan, that the cancer has not metastasized, and you should rest assured that your stage 1 diagnosis is just right, no need for further concern. None of us would accept this. It would be medical malpractice, and we'd seek a second opinion. Dr. King talked a lot about the cancer of racism. He noted how strange it would be to condemn a physician who, through persistent work and the ingenuity of his medical skills, discovered cancer in a patient, and through the skills and discipline of direct action, revealed that there is a dangerous cancer of hatred and racism in our society. We did not cause the cancer, he wrote, we merely exposed it. Only through this kind of exposure will the cancer ever be cured. The committed white liberal, he wrote, must see the need for powerful antidotes to combat the disease of racism. And so some of us will see the razor-sharp victories of a black man and a Jewish man defeating white supremacy in the Georgia Senate runoff elections, as my friend Tamika Ferguson noted, as some kind of civil rights historical reckoning with the forces of good lining up and vanquishing a common foe. And people of faith will surely note that Senator Raphael Warnock, the first black man to be elected to the Senate from Georgia and the first as a Democrat, as divine intervention because he pastored Dr. King's home congregation, Ebenezer Baptist Church. And while I want to leave you with a sense of energy and courage as you deserve for the fight ahead of us, I want you to be clear that an activist preacher turned politician, just like a tough on crime prosecutor turned black Indian woman vice president, has to be judged on what he or she does, not on what he or she represents. The days of black first should be behind us. Representation only matters in so much as it is the lowest metric of progress. Social change and political movements are not really measured by individual success, as we now, looking back, see since King's time. Nor is progress achieved by simply being respectable and upstanding, by getting up and going to work on Wall Street or in a law firm or wearing the title of police commissioner. These individual acts of personal achievement are sometimes cataloged in the archives, almanacs, and record books as Black firsts. But what difference does a first make if the system doesn't change? If you are welcomed to the table of domination to break bread with others while it is your people who are on the menu? Dr. King said in a July 30th speech in Charleston, South Carolina in 1967, "I can't limit my concerns to the particular situation where a Negro comes and says, 'I'm the first this.' I'm more concerned about the seconds and the thirds and the fourths." King did not use his own success story of hard work, an exceptional education, a PhD at 23, the youngest pastor ever of Dexter Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. He did not sit at the table of power of 4 presidents, Nixon, Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Johnson, and then turn to Black youth and say, "I got mine, you get yours." He knew that but for the grace of God, he had walked out of the valley of despair time and time again. He knew, like the songwriter and first Black NAACP president James Weldon Johnson, that history was a source of power and not of shame, something to be remembered and not to be denied. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have won, treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. He knew, like Marion King, a freedom fighter in Albany, Georgia, who worked alongside young SNCC activists, Charles and Shirley Sherrod, teenagers at the time, that it was the young people that needed our wisdom and nourishment, but most importantly, our support, as they mobilized to do the restructuring of the whole of American society. We can celebrate King today and year after year and treat him as a saint and martyr. We can whitewash his legacy in such a way to sanctify the myth of American exceptionalism, that only in America can a Black man rise up out of the red clay of Georgia and single-handedly change America and the world. This is a myth because, of course, King did not do this alone. He learned time and time again that individuals don't bend the moral arc of the universe by themselves. Communities do. People together with common purpose and vision do. People like you and the honorees here tonight with institutions like NJPAC bringing us together for purposeful action. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalil, and thank you all for being with us today in celebration of Dr. King, and congratulations again to both of our honorees. May we all continue to be inspired by your example and that of Dr. King as our country moves forward. And now, before we go, we have one more performance for you. Here is Gabby North performing the song Glory by Common and John Legend from Ava DuVernay's 2014 film about the civil rights movement, Selma.
When the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Whoa, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Whoa, glory, 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 whoa. Now the war is not over, victory is not won, and we'll fight on to the finish. Then when it's all done, we'll cry glory, oh glory, oh. Salvation now for every man, woman, and child. Even Jesus got his crown in front of a crowd. They march with the torch, we gon' run with it now. Never look back, we done gone hundreds of miles. From dark roads, heroes, to become a hero. Facing the League of Justice, his power was the people. Enemies lethal when King became regal. Saw the fishes Jim Crow under a bald eagle. The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful. We sing, our music is the cuts that we bleed through. Some